Anytime I mention that I've been on a private pick, people ask me, what exactly is a private pick? And once I explain what it is, then they want to know, how in the world did you find a private pick? So in this video, I'm going to explain what private picks are, and then I'm going to tell you how I found them and how I go about getting them. And I'll show you some clips along the way of some of the amazing things that I got just out of the last private pick that I had. Private picks are, in my opinion, the absolute best way to find inventory to resell online. When you get into a private pick, there's no competition. You're not fighting anybody for anything. The prices are usually negotiable. You can buy in bulk if you need to. So let's talk about what in the world is a private pick. A private pick is kind of just what it sounds like. Someone has allowed you to come in and pick a place that isn't open to the general public. You may be the first person in there who's been a reseller. I got into an estate recently where everything is going to be thrown away. They have bought the house to flip it, and what that means is that as soon as I'm done, they've got a crew coming in with dumpsters who are going to clean this place out and throw away everything. Because I've been able to develop a relationship with somebody, they let me go in first. And they let me go through and find out what's valuable and what I want. And then I pay them some at the end of it. And it's very, very negotiable. They're interested in not having to throw everything away. And it saves them money because now they're not paying dump fees on whatever I get. But they also like the idea that sometimes there's valuable things that don't need to wind up in a landfill. That's what a private pick is. It's an invitation to go in and look at what's left over or what's in a place before anybody else, before it gets thrown away. Private picks are awesome. So let's talk about exactly how I have found them and how I get into them. And then I want to show you some of the amazing things that just came out of the last one. How I get into private picks is the first and foremost, I tell people what I do. My friends, my family, the people that I work with, the estate sales that I go to, all of these people know that I'm a reseller. And I get it. It can be uncomfortable to tell that to people. There's a few people out there that'll have a negative opinion of a reseller. Most of the people that work with me, they have a completely different opinion. I'm not going to get a private pick from somebody that doesn't know I'm a reseller. If somebody has a negative impression of a reseller, I'm not going to get in that place anyway. I let people know that I'm interested, and that alone wouldn't be enough. So let's move on to the second part. You have to have a reputation of being honest. And let's talk about what that means in this context. This last pick that I went into was a bit of a hoarder house. At a minimum, it had been tossed. The people that let me in, we have an agreement that I'm looking for things that they would miss. They know the value of a bag of cash. If I found a bag of cash, that isn't something that they would need my help with to dispose of. If there were a bundle of guns or a pot of gold, they already know what to do with that. But they also know that if I'm in there and I come across something like that, that I'm not secretly taking it home. They know that I'm going to call them and say, hey, there's a bag of money over here. There's several $100s that you guys missed, and I'll set it aside to you or get it to you the next time I see you. That's a real conversation that I would have with somebody. What the honesty does is it creates a real comfort level for them to let me go look. There's not going to be an issue with me being in there that I took something that I knew that they would find valuable, because that's not going to happen with me. And I think that goes a long way towards getting into a private pick. I think it goes a long way. The next one I think is critically important is the people that I'm with also know that if I go into a place that they've given me permission to, that I'm assuming all of my own risk. As you can look at with some of this footage that I've got, when I went into this place, you couldn't walk. It's been full of mice. It's been tossed. There's stuff everywhere. There could be broken glass. There could be live rodents. They know that I'm assuming all of my own responsibility. I'm assuming all of my own risk, that I'm not putting them in risk. I always put that in writing for them so that they're not risking anything by me going in. Now think about it. I've told people what I do. The people that know me, I've got references. They know that I'm going to be honest when I get in there. I put them at ease by also letting them know that I know that you don't know the situation. It might not be completely safe for me to be in there, and that I'm assuming that risk. That puts them at ease. And then the last part, and I think it might be the most helpful part, and I actually do this and I've done it quite a bit, is you have to be willing to be helpful even if there's no profit in it for you. I've gone a lot of times just to look and just to tell them, hey, if you're a reseller, you need to resell this and this and this. And you'd be shocked at how many of those times when there was no expectation of me being able to buy anything, no expectation of profit for me, that it leads to either something at that time or something else later on. So I don't just tell people what I do, but I also offer to help when I can. Yes, I have gone in before and spent an hour or two helping somebody else, and I don't get any money out of it. And I'm okay with that, because a big part of it for me is I love doing this. So I love doing it even if there's not a dollar attached to it. That's how I get private picks. It takes a while to build some of these relationships. You may not have those relationships, and you may not know who to develop those relationships with, because they come out of the blue sometimes. But it's taken me a long time, and I've got several people that will call me and give me an opportunity to go look first. And looking first is the real gem in all of this. Let's say that you finally get to open the door and go in on your own private pick. Let me tell you how I pick a place, because it can be overwhelming. There can be so much stuff scattered about that you're not just going to walk in and go through 15 tubs. Nothing's organized. It's not ready for you. So how do I do it? Number one, the first thing that I do is I do a cursory scan of the place. I just walk through. I'm looking at everything that's laying on top. I want to get a layout. I want to figure out, how old is the place. I'm just trying to get a feel for where to start, because every single pick will be different. If it's an old warehouse, it would be different than if it's an old farmhouse. If it's an old farmhouse, it'd be much different than if it was an apartment. Step number 2, I'm going to scan for the easy stuff. Quite often, some of the best stuff is already laying out. Somebody pulled it out and left it where it was at. I'm going to have a much better idea of what kind of place I'm at. I'm going to know whether or not they were a clothes horse. I'm going to know if they were a gamer. I'm going to know if they collected automobiles. I will get a much better idea of what kind of place I'm at as I go through and scan. I've picked out some of the easy stuff, and I've got a flavor for the place at this point. I've probably been there for, that first step takes 10-15 minutes, and the next step probably takes another 10 or 15 minutes. And now I got a pretty good feel for what it's at. Brings me to step 3. That's going to be the deep dive. And I move methodically, room by room, and I've got an idea of what kind of stuff I might see at this place. And I go through and methodically move from one room to the next, hopefully finding those things that are hidden at that point. And for example, this last one that I went to, I found ammo and gun cases. So I'm going to look a little harder. I'm going to check between mattresses. I'm going to check under the beds to make sure there aren't guns. Now, I don't keep the guns. I would have turned those over to the people that let me in. But I would look to see, because if I don't, they're going to get thrown out. Well, they wouldn't get thrown out. Whoever cleaned the place out would keep them. But I would want to get them back to the people that let me in. I've scanned the place. I grabbed all the stuff that was real easy and on top. And the deep dive, I can spend, even just in a small house, I can spend 2 to 3 hours very, very easily. And the fourth one, now I want to go back, and I've kind of picked everything. I've seen everything. I'm going to take this stuff out to the car or the truck, and hopefully with fresh eyes, I'm going to do the same thing I did the first time. I'm going to scan the place again and make sure that there isn't something obvious that I have overlooked at every other step. Before I close that door the last time, I want to have gone back in with as fresh eyes as I can and examine the whole place before I say bye. So the last step is to look one last time. There's a few things you need to remember when you're doing these. You can't save everything. Like this last one was so full of stuff, it wasn't possible for me to save everything that might have value. I would have been overwhelmed. And that part is probably the hardest thing for me because I hate the idea of any of it not going to somebody who it would benefit. I hate the idea of it winding up in a landfill, but you simply can't. And that may be the hardest part of the job. But the second part is to remember that you do get an opportunity to save some things. This last one that I picked, I saved a few things. I found a Texas ware bowl that was super cool. The splatterware sells very, very well. And I was able to save some very, very cool sports specialties hats. The prize I found in the shed. And the real prize were some 1930s coveralls that were embroidered on the back, Texas Lone Star Fort Worth Motorcycle Club. Absolutely super cool. And because they looked old and they had a few holes in them and some tears and some stains, people that don't do what you and I do, they throw those away. Those go to a landfill, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't go to a landfill. Look what they sold for. This job for me and for Melody isn't all about profit. We really love it, and we want to make a lot of money, but we like what we do. We love the idea of saving some things. Private picks are among our favorite things to do, and they are within reach of everybody here who's capable of communicating. I have some exciting things coming up. I hope you'll tune in. I hope you'll subscribe, but I will see you on the next one. Bye.